Oh, we're on already. Hey, bag ladies and bag dudes. I'm Sara Lawson from So Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Ask Sara, my weekly Q&A chat. Oh my goodness, we were talking and testing the mic, and I really had no idea it was showtime. Thank you
Thanks,
everyone
Danny.
so much for joining me. I see Kay's watching from Central New York. Terry's also joining us over on YouTube, and Kathy's watching from California. So thank you everyone so much for joining us for this live book club discussion. I'm here with my friend Tamara,
Hi, everybody.
and we're going to be talking about our second book club selection, which is called The Last Runaway, and it's written by Tracy Chevalier. So we have a lot to get to during the show. We're going to be having our book club questions and discussing the book. I have the brand new video and PDF pattern to go along with
Hi,
the
Debbie.
discussion. So we'll be posting the projects directly after the show. And then I also got some books that were related to the Underground Railroad and Quakers, just to show you some examples of quilts that were made during this time period. So I'm pretty excited about it. There's a lot of historical background information, even though this was a fictional book, but it's based on certain things that really
Historical
happened.
fiction.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get to that, I have 3 quick things to let everyone know about. So last Tuesday, we had an impromptu giveaway. We gave away one $50 gift certificate to my shop live on the show, and then a second $50 gift certificate to anyone who watched the recording later on in the week. So the winner of that $50 gift certificate is Trisha Whitehouse. So congratulations to Trisha. If you could just email me after the show or whenever you catch this, we'll try to tag you on social media as well, just so that I can get you set up with your prize. So congratulations again. We are having a book club contest, which someone reminded me of earlier today. We will not be doing a monthly contest, but we'll just be doing a book club contest for all 6 of the projects. So if you happen to make any of the 6 projects, you can just go ahead and click over to the original book club link, and I've linked to that in the description. Stephanie says, nice to see you again. I was at the retreat with you. Yeah, Stephanie purchased...
Inside deal, Ramtat?
No, I think her fingers were just getting really quick on the
Stephanie
keyboard.
at the earlier one or the September one?
The first one, I
Okay.
think. The
Yeah,
first one that
sounds
you were
very
at.
familiar, yeah.
I can picture exactly where she was sitting too. Anyway, the contest is located in the original book club link, which is posted in the description. So if you already made the Clydebank tote, you can go ahead and post a photo of your finished bag in that linky. And if you make any of the 6 projects before the end of September, you can go ahead and post a photo of your finished project. We'll have some judged prizes and also randomly drawn prizes. So I hope you'll consider entering. And I've seen so many wonderful Clydebank totes being made already. So I hope everyone that's already posted in the Facebook group or made a Clydebank tote will post their photo over in that linky to be eligible for the prizes. Okay, and Bronwyn and Michelle also wanted me to let all of you know that the week 3 winner of the Sublime Bag Sew Along, and this is a randomly drawn winner, is Diana Calderola. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Danny's going to post her progress photo on the screen. This
I
is,
love it.
yeah, I love the text fabric. This is from the week 3 album. The week 5 album will be posted tonight after the show in the Facebook group. And Michelle Graham will also be posting an extra PDF for helpful tips for the week 5 assignment. So you can find that over on Facebook directly after the show. Okay, so we have a lot to get to, so let's get over to the
All right,
questions and
let's
talk
do it.
about the book. Just as a reminder, this is kind of, since this is only the 2nd month, we're still trying to feel our way through the best way to have group participation, not just from me and Tamara, but everyone watching. So if you would like to answer any of the questions that I mention about the book, go ahead and feel free certainly to type your answer in the comments, or if you have
And we'll try to
a
get to
good,
'em.
if you have a good observation or something else to mention, go ahead and type that in the comments. Danny's going to be on the lookout for those while we're having our discussion, and we'll try to get some of those posted on the screen. But let's get right to it. So my first question for this book, Honor was sick on the boat from England to America, and do you think this was the reason that she didn't go home after Grace passed away? So what do you think, Tamara?
I think it was a combination of several things. First, she probably really dreaded that 6-week journey, being sick 24/7 on the ship. Second, I think she felt very humiliated by Samuel breaking their engagement, not only because he broke the engagement, but because he went with another woman that was outside the Quaker community, and that was Honor's, how she described it, it was her life foundation. So I think that was another thing. And she had said several times in the book about going back, facing his parents and anybody that knew about it. So she was really humiliated for that. And lastly, I think Honor really felt obligated to travel herself to tell Adam about Grace's passing herself.
Yeah, those are really good points. And I see Terry's also mentioning something that I was thinking about while I was reading. Did anyone else want Honor to save Donovan? She could have made him a better man. Like, I was totally thinking that while I was reading the book, too. And then Sandy's also commenting she would not want to go back on the ship. No way. And you were telling me something interesting about that. So I wrote down in my notes that they had really bad weather for 14 days. I was thinking about when I was reading, like, I can't imagine being on a ship and knowing that day in and day out you were going to be sick, and that's what you had to look forward to. And I don't know if you wanted to share, but we were talking earlier before the show.
I instantly went to my 3 pregnancies, and I started throwing up 24/7 at about 5 to 6 weeks, and it went to 28 weeks, and it was round the clock. I was even in the hospital getting IVs and lipids.
Oh my gosh.
And you never think you're going to survive it, and then when it finally passes, it's like, oh my God, it's so good. So I the whole time she was describing that, that ship ride, I thought of that and thought.
So you could
I could kind of relate, thinking, I'm not getting back on there for 6 more weeks and doing that again. So I could definitely relate.
Goodness.
Yeah. And she said, when she was writing letters to Biddy, but I confess, Biddy, if it were not for the impossible journey to reach Bridport, I would have immediately by my place east on a stage from Cleveland. There is little to keep me here. I was surprised to read that because she talked about how bad the trip was.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I don't know how people did that back then. My next question was, when Honor left Bridport to come to America, what was the importance of the only quilt that she brought with her? So she brought with her a signature quilt. I unearthed a photo. I did some research about signature quilts, and Danny's going to post this photo on the screen right now of an actual signature quilt. I
like this
so we
idea
could see.
a lot.
I know it's a huge quilt, and I know the blocks are small, but I'm pretty sure in the top portion, the cream colored, you can see handwriting. So this is an example of a signature quilt, and I found a bit of research from the website Quilt Index, and it said, signature quilts, those that carry multiple signatures or names that were inked, stamped, embroidered, or otherwise inscribed, are important primary historical documents. In some cases, signature quilts are the only material evidence that documents the names of individuals who have a relationship to each other. So I thought
like
that was
history.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It's like in some cases it might be the only family tree or the only documentation of people in the family and how they were connected. So I thought that was really awesome that it's a combination of our craft with important historical documents.
And I like that idea of a signature quilt. I've seen people do it with like tablecloths for like birthday parties or anniversary parties. And if you have older people in your family and then they sign their name, and then someone will come behind and stitch it. And after years and years, it'd be a really cool thing to be able to pass down to your kids.
I'm curious if anyone watching the show right now has a signature quilt or maybe has participated in the making of a signature quilt. Like maybe you signed a bit of fabric to be made into a quilt block. I'm really curious.
We do labels on quilts all the time.
That's true.
With the name and the date and who it's for and who it's from. Yeah. Or a message maybe. It's kind of like a mini thing like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Michelle says the importance of the quilt was that it kept her tied to her family, even with an ocean in between them. It gave her comfort and made her feel safe and loved. She had a memory of them always with her.
And I had said that too. Pretty much Michelle, right on track, that she had said that it wasn't the best quality quilt out of all of it, but it made her feel close to all those who signed it and stitched it, and it seemed like her personal favorite. And one of the passages that I read...
While you find the passage, I just wanted to read Karen's comment. Karen said, "We do signature blocks as farewell blocks for people moving away from our guild." I think that's a really great idea. I love that. And then Melissa said, I made a signature quilt as the guest book for my daughter's wedding this summer. Also a fantastic idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A wedding at the very beginning, and then they'll have it
Yeah, exactly.
throughout. Here, let me find it.
I think Danny has another one too. Deb says, I made my parents a 50th anniversary quilt that friends signed blocks. So it's so fun that tradition is still continuing today.
Here, she was in the room and it was really warm, and she said, though it was warm, that night she huddled under the signature quilt in the tiny bedroom seeking solace. So, like Michelle said, I think it just made her feel close to the people that signed it.
Auntie Vic says, I have signed and put together a signature quilt for a friend's 70th birthday.
So it's a pretty popular
Yeah,
thing
sounds
to
like
do.
a lot of you are doing signature quilts. My next question is, when Donovan stopped Thomas and Honor looking for slaves, how do you think this established their relationship of sorts? And like the earlier comment that we put up on the screen, some people were hoping for Donovan to be kind of transformed due to Honor's presence, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But I was thinking for this question, Donovan insisted on looking in Honor's trunk when they first met. He pulled out her signature quilt and said his mother made quilts, that she made star quilts made out of little diamonds, and Honor said that it was a Star of Bethlehem. So Danny has another photo he's going to put up on the screen of a Star of Bethlehem quilt so you can see. I found a lot of examples, but the main idea of this particular quilt is the huge star in the middle. Not every Bethlehem star that I found had the smaller stars on the outside, but as long as it had the big star in the middle, that was the main feature.
I looked at that question a little bit differently than you. I thought Donovan seemed very abrupt and forward, unlike anyone Honor had met, especially, coming from a Quaker area. But there seemed to be some kind of a physical attraction between the two of them, but she felt it wasn't right, and she could never support him with what he did with the, trying to hunt down the runaway slaves. But still, you just seem kind of threaded through that there was something about the connection and how he kept the key to her, probably to keep her close to him, and he always wanted to find her and would always wave when he drove by on his horse. I thought we had a different opinion on that.
All right, so my next question is, what is your favorite quote from the book? So Tamara, I know you had a couple quotes that were kind of connected in the story.
Yeah. I found it was two that kind of went together in the same section of the book. When Belle came, or she went to see Belle, and Belle gave her the lace edged pillowcases as a wedding gift. Honor had said, seeing Belle Mills was like discovering a sweet plum and a bowl of unripe fruit. And I just thought that was a really cool thing. And then they don't really like getting gifts, the Quakers. She said it really wasn't a tradition that, they felt comfortable with, and you don't have to, and I'll make sure, Jack and I will thank thee, and that kind of thing. And then Belle went on to say, well, here's what I think. Belle said, whatever's happened to you during the day, as long as you got a nice pillowcase for your head at night, you'll be all right. And I remember we were talking earlier about when our kids were little, we always liked to make sure that they had a nice clean pillowcase, especially when they were sick. And it also reminded me of a sewing friend of mine up in Fairbanks, Alaska, Kathleen, and she's pretty much traveled the world. And she said whenever she travels with someone, she always makes them a pillowcase. That just reminded me of that.
That's a really good connection.
And I love how books can do that, where you see one little quote and it just brings you to a lot of things, experiences in your life.
Ellen says, I am learning the difference between running from and running towards. I like that a lot. And then Carol says, loved, sustained silence allows one truly to listen to what is deep inside. We call it waiting in expectation.
I had that one first.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I love that one. I think it could apply to any religion or faith, meditation.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite quote from the book is, while Honor was writing to her best friend Biddy, Honor writes, perhaps thee will best understand what Abigail is like if I tell thee that when she quilts, she prefers to stitch in the ditch, hiding her poor stitches in the seams between blocks. I do not think thee or I has resorted to such a technique since we were girls. So it was kind of like a poke on Abigail. They didn't exactly get along. Yeah. And I thought it was funny that she was critiquing her hand quilting. So a sewing related quilt there, I guess. All right. My next question was, why was Honor so devastated about Samuel? So I kind of skirted around answering that in the midst of my research. So my answer to that question is a little bit of a backstory about Quakers. So Quakers are members of a group with Christian roots that began in England in the 1650s. The formal title is the Society of Friends. In Britain, there are 17,000 Quakers and 400 Quaker meetings for worship each week. Quakers believe that there is something of God in everybody and that each human being is of unique worth. That is why Quakers value all people equally and oppose anything that may harm or threaten them. They emphasize direct experience of God rather than ritual or ceremony, which I thought was really interesting for an established religion. And so after that bit of research, which I found on the BBC UK website, so after reading that, I wrote down that Honor was supposed to marry Samuel, but he fell in love with someone outside their religion, and he left the church. So after reading about the connection that the Quakers had and that he left the church to be with another woman, I can see why she would have been so devastated.
Mm-hmm. And to dovetail on that, I felt like he left her for another woman, which was bad enough. Mm-hmm. But the fact that in their close Quaker community, like you had said, he left her for another woman and left their group, and she said that was her life's foundation. Mm-hmm. So that was who she was deep down. And I thought I looked up the Quaker thing too, and I thought it was interesting. They don't follow the typical religious rituals or sacraments. Mm-hmm. It's more of the light coming into each person, and then the sense of community of helping each other out. Mm-hmm. And that's why when she came, even though she had nowhere to go, they took her in, which I thought was, I don't know too many people that would do that now. It's total strangers, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Definitely. All right. So, Tamara, which character do you wish you knew more about and why?
This one was a tie for me. I really wish they would have gotten more into Belle Mills and Mrs. Reed. I think they were so pivotal with helping the runaway slaves, and I think I would have even liked if they would have gotten more into how they helped them, how they got involved with helping them. And Honor seemed more like them, and they seemed to have that connection where she always wanted to help when she was on the farm with them too. I just thought they were both really interesting characters, and I really would have liked to have learned more about them.
Yeah, I said Mrs. Reed. We knew she had a daughter that she was sewing the dress for, which she bought from the shop from Honor.
Oh, the wedding dress.
Yes. You could tell she was a strong woman. I thought it would be interesting when we were talking before the show. I thought it would be really interesting if the book was sort of half Honor's experience and perhaps half Mrs. Reed, so that you could still get that backstory about the runaway slave system and how that worked. Ellen said, we barely met Thomas's wife. I think her backstory would have been interesting. I agree
because
with that
he
too.
helped too.
Yeah.
He would hide him in the wagon back and forth. Yeah, that's a good point,
Carol said, loved Belle. I would have been a Belle in that time. I like that comment.
She was very colorful.
Yeah.
I liked her too.
Vicky says, I loved the walking conversation between Honor and Mrs. Reed. Definitely. All right, so the next question is, why did Honor need 12 quilts in order to get married to Jack? So I admit that I asked some quilty friends for information on this because when I Googled it, there wasn't a whole lot on the internet specifically to 12 quilts.
I couldn't find anything either.
So I went to some quilty friends, and they asked some of their friends who were sort of more expert in this area. So I have two different quotes or bits of information, if you will. So there's a book called Quilts and Other Bed Coverings in the Canadian Tradition, and this is a quote directly from the book. It says, an invitation to participate in the making of a girl's marriage quilt was equivalent to putting an announcement in the local newspaper. A girl did not quilt her marriage top until she was engaged. In some instances, even the everyday quilts were not finished until a marriage appeared imminent, since completing them involved the greatest expenses for buying stuffing and backing material. And there's another bit of information. It relates to the Amish and Mennonites, but I feel like that's kind of a not
similar
the same,
to
yeah,
the
a similar background to the Quakers. But the mother sees to it that her child gets several quilts. Daughters get 3 to 7 quilts. Sons get 1 to 4 quilts. These are provided for them to go to housekeeping, and the amount seemed to depend on the area that they lived in, and it could depend on, so not every daughter would get, say, for example, 3 quilts. it just depended on the family and the area that they came from. So I thought that was
Maybe it depended
really
on how many
interesting.
the new husband got as well, the combination.
That's true.
You know, maybe they added it together.
Margie says, was it one for every month of the year? Oh, I didn't even consider
Oh,
that, but
that's
that's a
a good
possibility.
I was kind of stuck on this one, and I like Google everything. I'm like the Google queen, and I couldn't find anything. So I thought it seemed like it was a demand or expectation from Jack's mom. She was kind of, oh my gosh, you have to have 12, and that's it, and including the whole cloth.
That's right. So that would be
one.
13. And Carol says something kind of similar to what you said. 12 quilts was an obstacle and foreshadowing of how difficult her mother-in-law was
Well,
going
and
to be.
especially when she said, "How many do you have?" and she said, "One. One. You have to have 12." And then as we got more into the book, and we realized how cold the winters were. And Ohio weather is very similar to Chicago. I mean, I was at a Cubs game Saturday and got sunburn and 60 degrees, and then we woke up, or Sunday morning, we woke up to 4 or 5 inches of snow and 28. So, I mean,
Yep.
but in the Ohio where they were talking about how they were all huddled in one room and they were all underneath all the quilts, I thought, you probably need more than 12 quilts with 2 feet of snow and no heat. I just thought, how nice it is to just flip that switch when we're cold.
Exactly.
But I thought maybe it was a way for them to get through on farms, to get through, really cold, long winters.
And Stephanie said, I saw it as a dowry, and also maybe because if starting a family and home, maybe they needed them. Yeah, exactly.
Like a family came to visit, everybody needed to have a quilt.
Yeah. Maybe,
Very important
possibly.
part of history, for sure.
And we were talking maybe it's a modern equivalent to when you get married, like either
a shower.
Yeah, either a bridal shower.
Registry.
Yep, exactly. So on your registry, you ask for things for the home, silverware, dishes, that kind of thing. And back then they needed things like quilts because they didn't have the heat that we do today.
And when you read and saw how important all the sewing and the quilts were to Honor and how good she was at it and how much time they spent, obviously, even though the quilts were different in Ohio than they were in England, it was still such an important part of a woman's job with a family and a home, and they were expected to know how to do it. So it was definitely a very important part of their history.
Yeah, and I like this comment too. I thought it was her mother-in-law trying to make Honor feel less than. Yeah, kind of what you said, like she only had one, like it was a big deal.
Oh, you need to send home, like, she could just call FedEx and have them ship it all across the ocean, but she did get it, the 3 of them back.
Yeah, that's true. Teresa also said Jack's mother is very domineering. She was making sure she did not lose her top position. Yeah, that's a good point to make also. Another woman coming into the house. Claudia says, like a dowry, I read that they were to be used during their married life, like something new for the married couple, but old to remember her single life.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that too. Thanks, Dan. You're getting some good ones to put up on the screen.
Good job, Danny.
So, Tamara, how important are the relationships Honor has with Belle Mills and Mrs. Reed?
I thought they were really important because Belle accepted her as she was and really immediately noticed what a good sewist she was with her sewing and quilting, and she put her to work making the hats, so it made her feel, she was earning
useful.
her keep and useful. And I think both Belle and Mrs. Reed, she felt some kind of connection to them. And when she was in one of the meetings, I remember reading, and it just made me feel really sad when she said, I'm even excluded from the excluded, when she was at one of the meetings, feeling that she didn't even fit in with other Quakers. And, but these people made her feel connected. I think it made her feel more welcome in such a strange place.
Teresa had a comment based on the previous question. During the 1800s in many parts of the country, there was a custom that a young girl make a baker's dozen of quilt tops before she became engaged, and this collection consisted of 12 utility quilts and then the whole cloth quilt.
Interesting. Thank you,
very
Teresa.
Interesting. I felt that Belle Mills and Mrs. Reed were both strong females, and they might have had men in their lives previously, but as far as the story goes, I saw that there was no apparent, they were not using men for support. Like, they were doing it on their own, especially Belle.
So like a role model almost. That she was alone and she could watch them be alone and be okay.
Right.
To be on their own.
That's a good point. Okay, so over to the last question, and that is, what was the significance of Virginie in the story, and how did everything come full circle at the end? So Virginie offered water to Honor when she was sick at great risk to her because Donovan was chasing her down. And then when they met up again, when Virginie decided to go back for her girls, this time Honor helped hide them. So it was kind of, they were both able to help each other and get through this with another woman helping, not just alone.
Yeah, and I think Virginie was such a role model too, and was so strong to be going back and risking getting caught again for her girls. She had the twin girls that were 5, I think.
Yes.
And I think Honor could really relate to that because now she had a baby.
Yes.
And I think we all realize when we have children how protective we are and that we'll do anything to keep them safe. But I think she saw Virginie as a role model and she thought, you know what, if she can do this, so can I. So I think they kind of helped each other.
Amanda says, I think the relationship she had with Belle and Mrs. Reed made her feel like she could stand up for what she believed when it didn't fall in line with the beliefs of her new family. Yeah, that's a really good point. I totally agree with that.
Definitely. And Anna running away at that time period, how defiant and terrifying that must have been.
I know, I can't imagine.
And I don't know a lot about the Quakers, but when it got to the part where they were saying, okay, you have this many days, and if you don't come back to the farm with your baby, we're going to take the baby away from you. I thought, oh my gosh, that's so frightening. So I think the full circle thing, I thought it was a very happy ending that she ended up. Probably a very hard life ahead of them to go to Wisconsin.
Right.
But to take the baby and to be with Jack and leave his mother behind so they could truly be a family. I was like, yay.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome.
I totally agree with that.
Great way to end it.
Yeah, it was a great ending to the book, I thought, too. So actually I tracked down 3 different books that I thought were really interesting as far as the subject matter goes. Actually, Danny, I don't know, for the side camera, we usually have a different mic. Is it okay if I still go over to the side camera with this mic?
And just pull this with you.
Just pull it with me? Okay. So I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you those 3 books really quick, just because I thought they were really interesting.
Look, everyone, Sarah's wearing shorts.
Uh,
Not too close, it's going to be very loud.
Okay. All right. So these were the 3 books that I tracked down just because I wanted to show you. Let me show you this one first because this is the one that I have the least amount of bookmarks in, if you will. So this one's called
Maybe
Felina's.
hold it in your hand because it's quiet.
Okay. Just take it off?
Yeah. Comes off.
Okay. All right. We're going to try it this way. This one's called Felina's Friendship Quilt, and this is subtitled A Quaker Farewell to Ohio. And let me just open this up. Can you hold this for me? So the whole book is about this quilt on the cover over here. Felina's quilt was completed and signed in 1853, and this was near the midpoint of more than a 20-year period during which signature quilts experienced great popularity in America. They suddenly appeared at the beginning of the 1840s and peaked in popularity by the middle of the decade. Their appeal had begun to decline by the late 1850s, but women continued to make signature quilts in large numbers into the 1870s. By the late 1870s, the deprivation caused by the Civil War had been replaced by prosperity across most of the country. With prosperity came a decline in the popularity of cotton signature quilts, and women began to apply their needlework to the latest fad, which was crazy quilts. So the whole book is about this particular quilt and the quilts of the Quakers in Ohio during the same time period. I have another one. This one is Quilts and Quaker Heritage. So I'm going to flip through this. I've bookmarked a few pages. These are actual quilts made by Quakers, and there's a little bit of history if known. Oh, I also wanted to show you the back cover, presenting the quilt to the bride. So this is an actual quilt made for a bride before her wedding, which we were talking about on the show, so I thought that would be interesting to show. Okay, so these are some of the quilts, and these quilts, they actually know in most cases who made them and who owned the quilt. These quilts were made around 1830, so I thought that was really interesting. Let me flip through a few more. So it's lovely to see all of the, I don't know if you can see the feathers and the really detailed quilting. Even back then, that detailed quilting was present. It wasn't just necessarily simple quilting. And this quilt right here, it says recognized by several other names. The quilt name assigned here reflects the dove as a symbol of pacifism. even though we do not know what the quilt was called by its maker. And it says, Quakers, like Mennonites and the Amish, are considered a peace organization due to their religious tenets, which we kind of talked about briefly on the show.
Sarah Tamara's arm's gonna be killing her.
No,
Oh,
I'm good.
sorry.
I'm good.
And this one was interesting to me as well because they have the pictures of the quilts as well as the pictures of the makers. So I thought that was interesting. I have a couple more bookmarks, it looks like.
Those are probably all done by hand, right?
Yes, exactly. And this one was fascinating, and I'm going to read a little blurb over here. This is the maker of this quilt. Her name is Mary Payne. And it says, there are many stories reflected in the inscriptions on the Quaker Valley quilt, but one is especially riveting. In particular, there is a block most likely inscribed with the name of former slave Mary Payne. Although there is no direct evidence to confirm that the Mary Payne whose identity was attached to the quilt's inscription was the former slave, there are two reasons we strongly suspect it. So I feel like that's really fascinating, and this book has several pages of historical information about Mary Payne, which I really liked reading as well. They were slaves who were given their freedom, and then they had to fight for their freedom again. So a huge journey, and I thought that the signature quilts that we talked about were really important for this very reason, because then you have a tie to Mary Payne and the making of quilts and quilt blocks. So I thought that was really interesting, and also I think this book is still readily available, at least for used copies on Amazon. It was written by Barbara Brackman. She's written a lot of different quilt books, and it's called Facts and Fabrications, Unraveling the History of Quilts and Slavery. So I'm just going to flip through a few, but there's actually quilt block instructions in this book, as well as historical information about quilts, slavery, if the Underground Railroad was related at all, and there's photographs of slaves as well and their families. So I thought this was super interesting. Here's the historical information about the quilts, yeah.
Wow.
And then there's quilt block instructions, which makes the book even more interesting. It's kind of like a 2-for-1.
They have the pattern pieces in there.
Yeah, the pattern pieces, everything's in there. Oh, I bookmarked this because I wanted to read a particular part. Without cotton, American slavery in the age of industry might have died out, doomed like other archaic economic systems such as serfdom and indentured servitude. Let me skip to the bottom. It says, cotton joined the slaveholding South and the industrial North into an alliance linking the lords of the lash, the slaveholders, to the lords of the loom, the northern mill owners. Plantations and mills created a world economic force out of an upstart revolutionary colony set in the wilderness. So cotton is related to sewing and quilting, and cotton was also related to slaves in America. So as you can see, I really had a great time sitting down on the couch reading and looking at the pictures. The quilt blocks are fantastic as well, but I just liked seeing the photographs of especially the family. So this family is posed in front of a quilt, and this is from about 1900. So I really highly recommend this book. I know I showed you 3, but this one really was fantastic to read about and look at. So I'm going to try to get the mic back into position. Here, Danny, is that okay?
Those were great. Thanks
Okay.
for finding them.
Yeah. I'm actually going to... Can you pass me some of those bins? So I'm going to show you the project. The free
ones on
video...
top?
any of them. You can throw them all up here. So I admit I went into overkill with working on the free project, and I made a lot because I wanted a rainbow assortment. But this is the Faithwell storage bins, and so I named these after one of the cities in the book. And it comes in 3 different sizes. We'll show you the other 2 bigger sizes. But I made... I wanted the RG Biv configuration for keeping scraps in my sewing room because I envisioned keeping
It's like a medium, and that's like the small.
Yep. So this is the medium, and
Here's the
there's a big one.
large. This one's awesome.
So I thought it would be really cool to keep the scraps organized according to color. So like all the orange scraps in here, all the yellow ones in here, and so on. So this is a really quick project. Here's a really big, the biggest one. But I thought it would be really fun. It's about an hour or less sewing time, so really quick to
And
put
not
together.
a lot of fabric.
Not a lot of fabric, especially for the small one. I know Easter's coming up if you need like a really quick last minute fast Easter basket, this would work for that as well. So this is the free pattern for this month. I decided to try to sort of alternate months, like have a bag one month and then a smaller accessory, a quicker accessory project the next month, and then the third month we'll be back onto a bag. So I'm excited about that. I have to apologize in advance though, because next month's project has no correlation visually to our number 3 book. My third book choice kind of fell through just because I felt like it wasn't enough sewing. That was The Dressmaker. It was a great book, but not enough sewing reference, and so I chose a different book, but I had already designed the pattern in my head, so I'm going to stick with the pattern for next month, which is going to be a bag. But our number 3 book, and Danny's going to put the photo on the screen right now, our number 3 book is called, he's looking for the photo, Mademoiselle Chanel, and it's written by C.W. Gortner. I loved this book. So I was considering it for the book club, and then I took it down out of consideration, and then I read it in my free time just because I kind of wanted to know more about her and read her story. And so I read it and I loved it so much that it jumped back on the list for book club. So it is a longer read. Depending on what country you live in, which is applicable for all of the book club selections, the cover might look a little different. I saw there was at least one other different cover
Like
artwork.
the Sewing Machine had a lot of different covers.
Yes, but as long as you look for the book by C.W. Gortner, and it's called Mademoiselle Chanel, I loved it so much. So I can't wait to talk about it next month. And again, try to look for the book at your local library. If you prefer reading on the Kindle, you can also try to get that book out on Kindle or audio from your library. I just went ahead and purchased it.
What is it?
Hoopla.
And
Yeah.
then there's another one with an O. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. There's a whole variety of ways you can find these books, not necessarily purchasing them. You might be able to get one from your library for free. So that will be our month number 3 selection. Next month we'll have a bag pattern and a brand new video and PDF pattern. I'm super excited about it, and I'm having a lot of fun doing these book club discussions. It's been
I think
fun.
it's getting a lot of people reading again.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading much, and now I'm excited I'm back in reading again.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a lot of fun. Danny, are there any other comments that we need to get to, do you think?
People
Or
mentioned also about their the cornfield experience.
cornfield experience?
Oh, and the book, the premarital.
Did we talk about that beforehand?
I don't think we did.
I thought the cornfield experience where Honor and Jack kind of get together, I felt like when I initially read it, I felt like it came out of nowhere. However, I was talking to someone, and I don't remember who it was. They said that was kind of common, how the whole thing happened before they got married.
Overdrive. Thank
Overdrive.
you.
My mom says it's Overdrive.
I knew
or
it was
Libby.
with an O. I just couldn't remember what.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you, Angela.
I know that we're all adults, but there is some love scenes, I guess, if you will, in this new book, Mademoiselle Chanel. There's a few of them, and I know a lot of you like that kind of thing. It's
Romance parts.
romance, yeah, romantic tryst, if you will. So that's in the next book. So if you like that kind of thing, I think you'll be really happy with the next book. It's not overpowering. It's not like a 50 Shades of Grey type of thing. Just, it just comes up a few times. But it's historical fiction based on a real person. I thought it would be really interesting to read. She's a designer. There's discussion in that book how she came up with her signature fragrance. So I thought that was really interesting and cool. And Danny's going to put another comment on the screen. Gloria says, that's funny. That's my favorite Chanel perfume's name. Chanel number 5, I think, was the best-selling.
Oh, that was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been around forever.
And the history about how that fragrance came about is really, you'll read it in the book, but it's fascinating. I hear Danny clicking away. Doreen says, I'm thinking maybe you can post the questions a week before so we can think about them. I don't have a way to post them for YouTube, but I did post them on Facebook as a file. So I'll be doing that sometime this week for the third book. I'll be posting the questions ahead of time because I know some of you like to have the questions. I'll be posting them as a PDF though, so in case you don't want to read the questions before you read the book, you don't have to until you open up the PDF document, if that makes sense. Barbara says, trying to download the pattern and I am receiving a 404 error. I actually haven't posted the pattern yet. It's ready to go live, but I wanted to keep it a complete secret until the show was over. So as soon as the show's over, that link will work. I promise. I just need to jump on my computer and click publish. Ella Lou says there's a movie about her too. I think it's called Coco maybe. Been a few years since I saw it. I'll have to look up
It's fun to see the movie after you read the book.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Tell everyone what you were telling me about your friend that was in the book club with the movie.
I have a close friend, Debbie, and she has her book club tonight, and they're reading Murder on the Orient Express. They read the book, and then they're going to watch the movie and have dinner. And I did that many years ago with Memoirs of a Geisha, where I went to the Asian store and got all kinds of fun dishes, and I had the soundtrack, and we watched the movie. And
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's just a lot of it's a lot of fun to do that.
I love that idea.
Like when you said the dressmaker, I haven't read the book, but it's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, I love
absolutely
that movie.
loved it. It's dark and quirky, and
it is.
Love all the dresses and the sewing, and I actually went and bought one of those machines with the bentwood case.
Oh, did you really?
I found it on eBay. Yeah, I was like,
Wow.
I have to have one.
Wow,
After
fascinating.
seeing that.
So much fun stuff. Danny, is that it on the comments? Are you cutting?
Yeah, I don't see any.
Okay, just double checking just in case. So thank you so much for joining us for the book club discussion. Again, our book 3 selection, which we'll be discussing in the middle of May. You can find the link to the schedule in the description, and as soon as we're done from being live, that pattern link will be working for you, so you can watch the video
Can't wait to
and
see
download
everybody
the pattern.
making them.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for joining us. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great Easter. We will be live on our regular time slot on Sunday for your Easter evening in case you need to wind down. So have a great week and happy sewing. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.